I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates, Mina Kimes.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. It's Mike Kadlick. It's Taylor Kyles here for our first opponent preview with key matchups ahead of Week 1, Patriots versus Bengals. We're going to bring on a guest from every opponent here throughout the season. And so for Week 1, we are very pleased, very excited to be joined by Joe Goodberry of Bengals on the Brain. Great Bengals coverage out in Cincinnati. A ton of Twitter stuff and also a YouTube channel over there. So we'll plug that later on too, Joe. But first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you helping us kick off Week 1 here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me on, guys. I mean, the first week, these two teams going at it, it's kind of fun, you know?
Yeah, it's going to be great for sure. It's sort of a top of the NFL barrel team in the Bengals, then a bottom of the barrel team with the Patriots. We're going to kind of go through an overview of each team. Of course, the Patriots, as we know, number 3 overall pick, new head coach, new general manager, de facto GM, and Elliott Wolf kind of gearing things, kicking things off. And it's funny, it kind of feels like they're almost in Bengals mode from a few years ago where, you know, they drafted Joe Burrow and maybe they need another season. They're looking for the next top 5 pick, which they obviously used on Jamar Chase. But really, it feels like a 2 to 3 year rebuild here with the Patriots and where they're at. But Joe, how do you guys out in Cincy sort of see Week 1 and I guess just an overview of where the Bengals are at heading into 2024? Obviously, a ton of storylines. One coming out today, obviously with Jamar Chase. But where are the Bengals at right now?
Yeah, I guess expectations are as high as they can be. You know, you're hoping it's the year after Brady hurt his knee, you know, and you come back and it's like, let's roll. Is the quarterback healthy? And if he is, you feel really good about your chances. When Burrow has been healthy for, in 2021 and 2022, they were knocking on the door of the Super Bowl twice, and you feel like you can get back there again. They've drafted well. They've added pieces in free agency. And then the only really thing hanging up there is the Jamar Chase really sitting out, holding in all of summer. And it seems like we're getting close to that culmination. Maybe we got a deal coming soon. It would have to happen here in the next, 2 to 3 days as the game's about to kick off. But it does feel like we're heading to that. And if everything is right, expectations are high. You guys have been there for a long time. You know what it's like when you're kind of not the underdog anymore and your teams are ready to take shots at you. The schedule looks a little bit harder when you get there. But yeah, I think we're all looking big picture here and hoping we're still there in January.
For sure.
When it comes to Jamar Chase, because he did miss so much time, obviously, I was thinking it kind of reminded me of the Darrelle Revis situation when he had his whole holdout in 2010. How much do you actually expect him to play Week 1? Is it going to be really they have certain packages, only critical situations? What do you expect in his snap total look like?
So I suspect he's been getting the work in on the side, and whether that's physically and mentally. We know that he and Burrow, back to the LSU days, already have that connection. That should not take long, and I feel like they're getting their work in the practice bubble when no one's around too. Joe Burrow's kind of alluded to that today, that don't worry, he's gotten his reps in. We've taken care of him. He's been in all the meetings. He's ready to go as soon as the word go it happens here. And I suspect it will, and I think that because of the other weapons on the offense, they don't have to directly throw 15 targets to Jamar Chase Week 1, right? It doesn't have to be that. But they're saying that, no, he's ready to go right now, was how Joe Burrow, every time he was asked today at the presser, he's ready to go. He's ready to go. He's ready to go today. And so, it gives you the confidence that they are.
And the way you can look at that too, right? It's like you mentioned it already, where they already have that rapport. They've played together for so long. And it's also not a new offense they're inputting. So it's not like Chase really has to be there for, install period 1, install period 2. They can, shuffle the depth chart around a bit while he's, holding in and still, like you mentioned, getting his work in with Joe Burrow. So as long as he's in shape, which, again, a superstar athlete trying to get paid that much money at this kind of, step in his career like he is, you're going to assume that he's taking the best care of his body imaginable. So I'm with you. I think once his name is signed on the dotted line, I don't even really see there being much of a snap count restriction on Sunday. He's out there. He's ready to go. They know where to put him in, and the rest of the guys know where to fall in line. So obviously that's kind of where we're at right now. We'll see if that crosses the finish line before Sunday. But the way we're going to do these opponent key matchup previews for the game for those watching is, like I said, we're going to bring in a guest from each opponent. And that guest, who is Joe today, and Taylor, are each going to give their key matchups to the game. And that's sort of going to be our structure, but we're going to turn it into a conversation as well. So without further ado, Joe, key matchup number 1 for Patriots versus Bengals on Sunday in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the offense and defensive line. Offensive line for the Bengals, defensive line for the Bengals. They've lost 2 defensive ends in camp. First, it was Cam Sample, a left defensive end, very good against the run. And then last year's first-round pick, Miles Murphy, he's on IR. He's going to miss the first 4 weeks. So they're a little weak at defensive end. And at defensive tackle, they lost DJ Reader in the offseason. They replaced him with a completely different type of player in Sheldon Rankins, who's more of a pass rusher, not that nose tackle type that DJ Reader is. And then when I look across the other side, I say, well, the Patriots, I'm not sure who the 5 starters even are right now. Like, who are they going to put out there on Sunday? Maybe they're trying to, keep it under wraps a little bit. But as a draft guy, I look at a lot of prospects they've drafted recently, and I see a few of these guys. I'm like, okay, maybe that's the plan. Maybe they're going to get these young guys that get their feet wet. But I guess the matchup to watch and look at is who's that left tackle for the Patriots versus Trey Hendrickson. He doesn't move. He's going to be at right defensive end, and he's going to rush from there. And as a strictly pass rusher, I think he's a top 5 to 8 pass rusher. Not great against the run, so maybe that's his weakness. But do they have someone to block him? And what does the offensive line look like for you guys?
Yeah, well, this is one of mine as well. So I feel like we're going to have a lot of overlap, but that's because I think the key matchups really are pretty loud. So what it's been in practice is at left tackle, it's been old friend Chuks Okorafor, who I know you're very familiar with, but he's never really gone up against Trey Hendrickson because he was a right tackle for the Steelers. He was really towards most of the late part of the summer for the Patriots. Then Vidarian Lowe, who was the left tackle for them, was actually having a pretty solid summer for someone who's really been a career backup. Ended up having an abdominal injury that's held him out the last couple of weeks. So Chuks has flipped to the left side. Then at left guard, it has been City. So he ended up suffering an ankle injury against the Commanders. So now there, it looks like it actually might be a combination of Nick Leverett, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and then Michael Jordan, another former Bengal, guy you're very familiar with. Those 2 guys have been repping on the left side next to Chuks Okorafor. So I think Michael Jordan's probably going to get elevated. And obviously week 1, you typically with some offensive lines that aren't really set, see some level of rotation. Then center, obviously David Andrews. Right guard, we've got Layden Robinson, a rookie. He has had a very good summer, but also when it comes to handling power at times, because he's a really high-cut guy, he has been put on skates. That led, I don't know if you saw the big hit on Jacoby Brissett in the Commanders game. That was because Robinson got pushed into City. So blew up the entire play. So as much as I like him, I'm going to be very curious how he handles BJ Hill and especially Sheldon Rankins, who the Patriots actually apparently were interested in free agency. And he's gangbusters, man. Like as a pass rusher, he's a scary dude. He's big. He's explosive. He moves really well. Then at right tackle, you got Mike Nwenu. I kind of like that matchup against Sam Hubbard. And I'm with you. When it comes to the run game, I feel like the Patriots can dominate. Even, we've been listening to Scott Peters as he's coaching up the offensive line. We can't say what he's been saying. It's very obvious. He's super familiar with the Bengals. He knows how they want to handle all these run schemes. So I think technically these guys are going to know what to do. But with a backup at left guard and then a rookie at right guard, I'm not as comfortable as I really want to be with the interior. Really, the only matchup I'm comfortable with is Mike Nwenu and Sam Hubbard, but they're going to have to give Chuks some help. Obviously, the scheme, like the Browns, they like to do as much as they can to take some pressure off their quarterbacks and offensive lines. So now that you do know what that lineup's looking like, I'm curious how you feel both as pass rushing unit and as a run defense unit, because the run defense is the one place I feel like the Patriots could potentially dominate with like David Andrews, Layden Robinson, and Mike Nwenu.
Yeah, we see the Bengals as probably an average pass rush unit as a whole, but a Trey Hendrickson that's a very good player. So, when they rotate to these other guys, though, is when the issues could come around. And for the Bengals, without having Miles Murphy out there, they're turning to Joseph Osai, who's going into his 4th year. He's flashed for years, but he's never been able to put it together. He's probably going to rotate in with Sam Hubbard at the left end spot and be the other pass rusher opposite of Trey Hendrickson. Still advantage Michael Nwenu there. I think it's at defensive tackle, and you're talking about the run game for the Patriots. The Bengals are probably going to be a poor run defense team, losing DJ Reader and not really replacing him with a veteran at that spot. They spent 2 draft picks, Chris Jenkins, Michigan in round 2, and then McKinley Jackson in the 3rd round. McKinley Jackson's also on IR. So it'll be Chris Jenkins And then 3rd round pick from 3 years ago, Zach Carter from Florida, not a really good run defender. Honestly, not really good at anything. He is the type of guy who can't take on double teams at all. Chris Jenkins is not a big dude either. When they rotate these guys in, it's going to be interesting to see if they can hold up and keep the linebackers clean at all. If I was the Patriots side, I would definitely be saying, we're running it. We're running it right up the middle. And we're going to aim our run towards Hendrickson if we can on that side, despite having the advantage on the right side. So I'm with you. I think the Bengals need to stop this run, stop the play action so they can get into true pass rush situations and unleash Hendrickson.
And then actually just what last thing, well, we can kind of put a bow on this, but I was watching the Browns when they played the Bengals in the opener last season. It seemed like most of their successful runs were either towards the left or cutting back to the left. There were a couple like pin pull runs they had towards Sam Hubbard that worked as well. But I'm with you. Trey Hendrickson, for as great as he is as a pass rusher, it did seem like he and the guys that they were kind of rotating at that spot were people that Alex Van Pelt and Scott Peters were targeting in the ground game. So that'll be really interesting to see.
I mean, Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt both are on record saying that this is going to be a run-first offense. And so, yes, those tackles, both left and right side, are going to struggle. You have a matchup there, like you mentioned, Taylor, with Onwenu on Hubbard that, you feel pretty good about, but that still is Jacoby's front side. You have Hendrickson on the backside with left tackle being such a question mark. So, obviously, one to watch there. But, again, they're going to try and run the football with Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, and the rest of that bunch. All right, so that's key matchup number 1 for Joe on the Bengals side. Taylor, what is your key matchup number 1 on the Patriots side?
All right, so mine, I'm actually going to go with the Patriots corners versus the Bengals wide receivers. Now, we already talked about Jamar Chase. If he ends up playing, there's so many different ways the Patriots could handle this matchup, because even Christian Gonzalez said, two-headed monster of T. Higgins, of Jamar Chase. They're not the only guys in this Bengals receiver core, obviously, that you have to think about, but they are very clearly the ones who are going to be highlighted in the game plan. So I'm trying to figure out, do you put Christian Gonzalez on the boundary? That was what they did in the opener against the Eagles, another team with a little dynamic duo wide receiver. Basically, we're like, hey, if it's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, we don't care. Just make sure he doesn't get behind you, tackle, do all that stuff. Or do they go back to the really old school Patriots game plans where they say, you know what, we're going to put Gonzalez on T. Higgins, have him one-on-one, and then Jamar Chase, you're getting Marco Wilson, John Jones, whoever, and then we're probably going to shade someone that way. And especially because I actually am curious what your take is on this, because I read that Jamar's been playing more in the slot last season. I'm not sure how much that's going to happen this year, but even there, I was asking Gonzo, like, do you like to shadow or stick to the boundary? He didn't bite on it. He wouldn't tell me anything. But even there, it's like, all right, if you're worried about where Chase is going to be, do you just say Gonzo? Like, he's been even following Pop into the slot at times this summer. Do they say, that's your guy, this is why you're a premier corner, go up against Jamar Chase? It's going to be a battle, but we trust you more than anybody else. So I think that's going to be fascinating. We saw in 2022, Joe Burrow was just eating those undersized corners alive. Marcus Jones, T. Higgins was just difficult to watch. They did a good job to stop the bleeding. It was a 4-point game, only gave up 3 plays, I think it was, at 20 yards or more. So the game plan worked to a degree, but you still don't really love those matchups with the smaller guys. So I'm thinking maybe Alex Sawston and Marco Wilson mix in with John Jones, with Marcus Jones. It's going to be fascinating because there's a ton of options. Maybe they switch it up, but at the very least, we're going to get a good battle between Christian Gonzalez and whoever he's lining up against.
Yeah, and the Bengals are going to throw the ball. Last 2 years, Joe Burrow's on pace to lead the league in attempts and dropbacks. So this is a team that's going to drop back 40 plus times, no matter what the situation is. And you bring up that last time they played, and that was a windy, cold, kind of a nasty, sunny, but nasty day to throw the ball, and they didn't care. They threw it. They threw it all down the field, and I expect it again. And it's funny you bring up the slot, because that is a big thing for the Bengals. It's a big storyline. But it's also, you're right, Jamar Chase's slot participation has gone up all 3 years he's been in the league. And I was thinking, all right, you let Tyler Boyd walk. I wouldn't be surprised if Jamar Chase is in the slot much more. You look at the number 1 receivers around the league, and their slot participation is nearing in the 50% range. If you want to, in fantasy terms, a wide receiver 1, a top 12 production type season. And last year was about a quarter of his snaps. So I would expect at least that from the old offense, but new offense here a little bit with a new coordinator, quarterbacks coach getting promoted to offensive coordinator, and he hasn't been able to participate really. I mean, you can be in meetings, you can do all that, but there's a little nuance to the slot that's a little different than the outside if you're going to do it at a 50% clip. So that's something I can't wait to see. Is it a slow progress through the season where we see more of Jamar Chase? And that's how we see Jermaine Burton, the 3rd round pick out of Alabama, filling in on the outside. But to me, I think if I was the Patriots, and it sounded like today, they're like, we're preparing for Chase to be out there. And why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't he be on the field, even if he doesn't get a contract done? But I would do that. I would double Chase, and I would try and say, all right, our best corner. And I was a big Gonzalez fan when he was coming out too. So I was interested in to see what you were going to say. This is also one of my top matchups. Is he going to shadow, right? And if not, one-on-one with T. Higgins would be a blast to watch. That would be some good film to watch. Can the Bengals, though, will one of these third receivers step up for them? Right now, it's Andre Yosivas, second-year player, 6th round out of Princeton. Smart dude, but 6'4" and runs a 4.3. That's weird to find out that he can play the slot. He did it this summer for the first time, and they're like, whoa, that's our slot guy. We will see, though. I'm expecting a heavy rotation between whether it's rotating Jermaine Burton in, if he's active, Trenton Irwin, who seems to make plays whenever he's out there. I think he scored against you guys last time.
That's
right.
Right.
And then Charlie Jones out of Purdue, who's last year's 5th round pick. So or 4th round pick. They've used him as a speed slot type option, a lot of jet motion, giving him the ball in the backfield, screens, and then speed slot type down the field. Can you split those safeties? So he'll get mixed in as well. They have a rotation for wide receiver 3, even though Yosivas is going to lead that. I'm excited to see what that looks like completely. We've speculated on our side the whole offseason of who that guy's going to be and what the rotation is going to be. But I think there's a chance for, hey, if they're going to double chase, if you're going to put your best corner, and let's say the Patriots are winning those matchups just based on, talent and numbers, can that number 3 guy win his job?
So and you mentioned I got a question. No, that's my fault, Taylor. I just quickly on the wide receiver 3 competition out there in Cincinnati that we're talking about, because it feels like a healthy dose of, all 3 guys, rotating Jermaine Burton and et cetera. But if Chase can't go, and then Higgins turns into, or doesn't go rather, Higgins turns into that, go-to de facto wide receiver 1 in the offense, the main target. Do those guys have what it takes to be wide receiver 2 in this offense and take a majority of the reps instead of just being those rotational pieces when you go into an 11 personnel versus 12, et cetera?
We have the same questions. And when Jamar has missed games, T's averaging over 100 yards a game. So he has always stepped up into that and done his thing. But at the same time, if you have good corners, and you guys got a 1st rounder over there, right, that's going into year 2, we should be entering prime time with him. And if you want to give safety help because there's no other options out there, I wonder the same thing. Are those guys good enough? Can they win one-on-one matchups consistently? Are they far enough in their development to win consistently? We don't have those answers. And then you start to look up, okay, maybe it's Mike Gesicki working the slot and moving around a little bit and being a chess piece. Is he the guy is that the type of game where he gets 8+ targets to see if he can do something? You guys are familiar with him. He's a limited player, but still at the same time can create some matchups, in a role that I think fits better when you have Chase and Higgins on the outside doing their work. But I have the same questions you do.
That was a great question. And mine was, you mentioned the OC change. Dan Pitcher, was a guy the Patriots were interested in, but of course he stays local, made all the sense in the world. What are the biggest changes you've seen in the offense since he's taken over?
It looks like we're going to see more play action, more under center. And I don't know that that's him. They also brought in Justin Riscotti, who was an offensive line and pass game coordinator with the Vikings, in their play action heavy wide zone scheme. They bring him over. He's a pass game coordinator now. And you're seeing that influence of the play action, marrying the pass blocking with what the quarterback is doing. He's a unique coach for that. But I think with Pitcher, the most interesting thing is more screens, also more of a rotation at that 3rd wide receiver spot, more of a rotation at tight end, more of a committee approach at running back. That probably is the biggest thing. It's why they traded away Joe Mixon. I don't think they want the bell cow guy anymore. I think they want to go with Chase Brown and Zach Moss and have guys that are interchangeable, that can make guys miss and get a little bit after contact. And if you get it to Chase Brown on a screen, that guy can rip one off. I think that is the biggest thing, is we're going to see a heavy mixture at running back.
It's so funny. We always say you never find these 6+ receivers run 4.3s. And apparently the Bengals just have guys to spare. That's so, of course, unfair. That's all I got.
Love it. All right. Well, we're going to continue on with our matchups in just a second, but first a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, it's just you against the numbers. Right now on Prize Picks, if you go check it out, you can get Caleb Williams as a square. with just one passing yard, that will get you one automatic win. I hopefully don't think that Caleb Williams is going to pull like an Aaron Rodgers last year and not get one passing yard in that first game. So that should be a free square for you. Also checking out the Patriots right now, Patriots versus Bengals. T. Higgins, more or less number on receiving yards, only 57.5, guys. I don't think that's terrible considering Jamar Chase might not play. And even if he does, he can still go for some. And then Jacoby Brissett, you can get at a more or less value of 203.5. So definitely some interesting plays there. Put them all together, and you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks over at Prize Picks. So make sure you go check it out now. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for $50 instantly. When you play $5, you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, that's Prize Picks. Head over there, use code CLNS. All right, we talked about 2 matchups so far. I think both of you guys had both of those on your plate, so I believe we may have 1, if not 2 more. But Joe, what do you got for us for yet another key matchup here in Patriots versus Bengals?
Yeah, so another big conversation in Cincinnati this offseason was what are the Bengals going to do at corner? Who's going to win this job? Dax Hill, first-round pick a few years ago as a safety, did not have the year they were looking for at safety, replacing Jesse Bates, but they move him to corner this year and directly let him compete with last year's second-round pick, DJ Turner out of Michigan. So 2 Michigan guys, 1 first-rounder, 1 second-rounder. Cornerback 1 is Cam Taylor-Britt. He's going into year 3. He's been a good player, playing about 65% of the snaps over the course of the season. He's done with injuries the last 2 years, but when he's been out there, he's been very, very good. And then Mike Hilton in the slot is one of the better slot guys in the last year of his deal. And it looks like they may have drafted his replacement with Josh Newton in round 5, who's been really good in camp and answering all the questions they had about him. So the number 2 job was won by Dax Hill. He won that from safety, first year playing corner, boundary corner. And it's not that DJ Turner was bad. He was good as well. He's going to play a role. They're all going to play, and it's going to be more of a rotation. And in fact, we saw a little bit over the summer on like 3rd and long type packages where they remove Mike Hilton and bring in DJ Turner. So it ends up being Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, DJ Turner, because I think that the speed issue and man coverage on 3rd and long for Mike Hilton, they spent too many years getting beat by MVS and the Chiefs or wherever their speed slot was. And they're like, we can't do this. We got to get more speed in that. So I want to see how that plays out. I want to see Dax Hill and what he looks like. He's got a lot of potential. We're talking about a long guy that's a great athlete. But then I look across the field and at the Patriots and I'm thinking, man, I love the 2 receivers they drafted. When are they going to play? How much are they going to play? What's it look like? Who's the number 1? So while we have questions to be answered for the Bengals, I have so many questions for the Patriots receiver unit, not in a bad way. I just want to see what it looks like.
I mean, the Patriots got questions at receiver still too. I want to know. So Jalen Polk does seem like he's going to, if not start, going to be heavily involved. He and KJ Osborne have pretty much been the primary Z receivers. This offense, the X and Z roles are kind of mixed match because they do use a lot of spread formations where those guys are outside on line of scrimmage anyway. But they also use a ton of 3x1s. So that ISO receiver has typically been Tyquan Thornton. Now, we still don't really know what he is yet. He did have a solid summer, like as a route runner. He's looked much improved under the new coaching staff. But on the ball, we haven't really seen him make a lot of contested catches or difficult grabs. And that's really been one of the biggest question marks for him, the consistency in pretty much every area. The coaching staff seems to think he's been doing a good job. So as much man coverage as I know this Bengals team is going to play, especially when this Pats offense goes under center. Last time they played Brissett, they always went like single high man and they blitz the inside linebackers, dog, whatever. So there's going to be those one-on-one matchups. And one of my keys, I don't have the receivers in the corners, but if I did, it would have been Tyquan Thornton has to win a couple of those matchups and make the Bengals respect him vertically. And then another battle I'm really excited to watch is Pop versus Mike Hilton. Because as much as I like Mike Hilton, like one of the most physical nickels in the entire game, I also think that he may not be a great matchup for Pop. Just because the way that this guy moves, I'm telling you, Javon Baker and Pop have been the 2 receivers who look completely different than everybody else. Like Javon, his consistency hasn't been great, really fell off from the early part of the summer. So I wouldn't expect a ton from him unless maybe he rotates at X a little bit. But Pop, man, he's embarrassing anybody. Like even Christian Gonzalez. There were 2 routes where Gonzalez followed him in the slot and got lost in coverage. It's because he's fast. He's not a burner, but because he's quick and can catch you off guard, it's kind of one of those where once he has a step, you're in real bad shape. So I'm hoping they can take advantage of some of those matchups. We saw Alex Van Pelt use him in motion against the Commanders for what could have been a couple touchdowns. So I don't know who on the outside is really going to win these one-on-one matchups. It's going to be interesting, but if the Patriots want an answer in those man coverage situations, I think it is going to be Pop versus if it's Mike Hilton or whoever they have in the slot there. That's going to be interesting to see.
My camera went out there almost. So to follow that up, are we going to see a lot of 3 wide receiver sets? Is this 11 personnel for the Patriots, or is it more like let's get tight, let's run the ball down their throats, and then third downs, let's spread it out?
It's going to be like what you saw with that 2022 Browns game or really what they've been doing where it's all they want to go outside zone. So they want to get you in that 4-down nickel front. They're going to have like Jalen Polk is going to be close to the formation sometimes just to insert another body, but it's going to be a lot of that. When they want to get to their gap stuff, some of their pin pull stuff, that's when they're going to get like extra offensive linemen. They're going to get their like multiple tight end sets. Their tight end depth chart is not looking good. So I don't know if that's going to work in their favor or not necessarily. And the O-line is just so shallow right now that like Michael Jordan, if he's activated, could be that eligible tight end. We're not sure yet. But yeah, I think that they're really going to try to just hammer outside zone, but they're going to do a little bit of everything. Like I think in the past couple of games, they've used like 8 different run concepts. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a doozy, but most of it is going to be spread from 11 personnel under center, trying to get going to the weak side.
Because the Bengals want to be in their nickel. They want Mike Hilton out there. They feel like he's an advantage. He's a +1 against the run, So I think they want that. They even against the Ravens at times, and Ravens are bringing in multiple tight ends, 3 tight end sets at times. The Bengals will still go out there in their nickel and figure it out from there. So they're a heavy rely on that nickel team.
Are they just going to blitz like crazy also? Because I was looking at the Pats game in 2022, and Mondre couldn't get anything going because you just had bodies flying into gaps.
Yeah, so Lou Anarumo will like to show you one picture and then blitz from another side, or show you one picture pre-snap and switch the coverages completely. So that's his trick. That's how they got to the Super Bowl that year. Teams weren't onto his game yet, and he got these quarterbacks in the playoffs to really get confused, and that's his specialty, is to show you one thing and bring it from another.
And that's what Gerard Mayo told us this morning. He said, Lou Anarumo, you never know where the pressure's coming from, and he does such a great job disguising. Like, watching the Brissett game, they would have that like double mug zone look where you weren't sure if it was zero, if they were going to switch to some kind of split field or whatever. And then it was one of the nickels or somebody in the slot, but sometimes they'd show the one guy and then he'd bail and the other guy would come. So I can't wait to study this film, man. This is going to be very fun, but I'm also a little nervous.
They are going to, like you said, they're going to roll, different personnel groupings, 11, 12. They used a lot of 12. Especially with, Austin Hooper out there as well, alongside Hunter Henry when they were healthy. It seems like they want to do it. But again, you mentioned it too. Taylor, we talked about it as sort of something that Brissett's going to have to do here anyway, is beat the Bengals deep if he can stay protected. And so, Joe, I'm just curious, one guy in that secondary signed with the Bengals this offseason, Geno Stone. He was a stud for Baltimore last year. I think he led the league in interceptions. It was either last year or the year before. He's been great. Signs with Cincy. How has he looked this summer? And how much of the Patriots, Jacoby Brissett, going to have to worry about him in the back end?
So the Bengals gave up the most explosive plays in the league last year, and yards per play, all that was through the roof. Now they lost both safeties, Jesse Bates and Von Bell, and they said, we're going to replace them with Nick Scott, who started a year and a half with the Rams and shoved Dax Hill into the free safety role, and he never played that. So it was a recipe. The writing was on the wall. Sometimes in the summer you buy into the hype, but you're like, you know what, those safeties, I don't know about that. Well, they ended up getting torched all year long. And I think that was like the major thing for them this offseason. They're like, okay, go out and get a safety that can make the adjustments that we need, have clear communication, and ball skills are a plus. Well, Geno Stone is that for them. And then Von Bell was released by the Panthers, and they said, okay, we'll get you for free, basically. Panthers are paying your salary. Come on down. Let's fix the communication. Let's get you guys in the right spot. And let's do this defense the way we want to. It's hard to disguise and do all the things I talked about with Lou Anarumo if the safeties aren't what you need them to be. So he corrected that. So, yeah, if we're talking, we want to lean on the run game and hit some play action passes and go over the top, I expect Geno Stone to be that free safety type. And there have been days in camp where the defense gave this offense absolutely nothing, to the point where we're like, isn't this like the 31st ranked defense in the league? Maybe not. Maybe they're back to being good again, or at least they were like 16th in 2021, 18th in 2022, like respectable, but not great. It wasn't until the playoffs that they really pulled the rabbit out of the hat on these offenses. maybe they're back at least to that mid-range, which if that's good enough, if you got an offense that's high-powered and puts the pressure on the opposing offense to be one-dimensional and have to keep up with an offense that can put up 30 points, I think that's where they're hoping to win. This Bengals offense gets down the field, gets down there early, puts up a touchdown, and then they can start disguising and unleashing whatever plan of attack they have for the Patriots.
Taylor, you have one more matchup, or are we done here now that we hit the interior offensive line as well?
I have one more. I have the Patriots interior defensive line versus the Bengals interior offensive line. Joe, I actually asked you about this one last night. As much as I love me some Teddy Karras, the guards for the Bengals, if I'm a Cincy fan, would worry me, especially just looking at the numbers. Like, I don't know if there's maybe something hidden in the numbers that I'm not seeing, but like Cordell Volson and Alex Kappa were two of the worst pass protecting guards in the NFL last season by several metrics. And the Patriots, they don't have Christian Barmore in this game. We don't know for how long. Massive loss. But Keon White has looked really good as an interior rusher. He's even admitted that's where he feels like he's the most comfortable. There were times in the preseason, I think it was the Eagles game, where he was just constantly in the backfield, whether it was like splitting double teams. Wasn't always finishing, but against a guy like Joe Burrow, who obviously is great in the pocket, but he doesn't want guys at his feet. I feel like that's going to be big for them. Also, Dietrich Wise, he's going to play inside and out as well, but I think if you want to kind of rotate and get different looks in there, he was really good against all three of the interior guys for the Bengals when they played in 2022. He's looked much better this year than he did last year, so hoping we get something there. Then behind them, honestly, it's not great in terms of like scary talent. You got Daniel Ekuale, who is solid, but he's got short arms. There's only so much he can do, but he is technique sound and pretty stout. Jeremiah Farm's a guy who I do like, but we've never seen him in a major role, so I'm not really sure if he can hold up. But he has shown a lot of positive flashes, not a lot of bad. But really the main thing for me is if you can get this Bengals offense in obvious passing situations and then kick Dietrich Wise or Keon White inside, I feel like they're going to have a much better chance because Joshua Uche and O'Shane Zimenez, two guys who you're probably going to be relying on to get you some edge heat. They have both been limited in practice, so I don't even know how much they're going to play, if they're going to be limited. So I think the key for this one is going to be making Burrow uncomfortable on the inside and maybe just trying to be stout on the edges, show that he can't just roll out and extend plays.
Yeah, the offensive line's been a topic since Burrow's been drafted, whether that's the Bengals being able to field a good unit at all. I mean, the guys that went to the Super Bowl in 2021, the only one still in the league is Jonah Williams. Everyone else, it's like, yeah, they were on their last leg in the NFL, and some of them were never destined to be starters at all. It's just injuries happen. And then the following year, when they go to the AFC Championship game, they have three backups playing again. They were healthy for 15 games, and then La'el Collins goes down in that Patriots game late in the year, and then it just cascaded, and guys just started getting hurt, Alex Kappa being one of them too. And Kappa dealing with a couple lower leg injuries now in his career, one with the Bucs when they went to the Super Bowl, and one with the Bengals when they made the AFC Championship run in 2022. It sapped a little bit away from him, and you can see it. His lower body isn't as flexible. He doesn't play with the same leverage and explosion he had early in his career. Still a fine guard, as the same way that Ted Karras is a fine center. Neither of them are going to win because of their athleticism or size or strength. They don't have a dominant trait, but they're going to mostly do what you need them to do. Cordell Volson at left guard is the guy that really we've looked at as the weak link for a long time. He was a 4th round pick out of North Dakota, right? So you're not expecting this guy to come in and start right away, and he did, and he's been extremely durable. He's gotten marginally better every year, but not to the point where he's good. He'd probably be much better in a run scheme, coming from a run scheme in college. Like if he was with the Titans or with the Ravens, he probably would have looked better the last 3 years. But with the Bengals that are passing it as much as they do, it leaves him a bit exposed, especially to quicker, more athletic pass rushers, guys that can cross his face and get him to lean a little bit, give him to overextend. They feel good about Orlando Brown at left tackle, a quality player. He's not great. He's good enough. He's what you would, baseline. He's better than that, but he's not a guy who's going to shut down a dominant rusher. Not that we know if the Patriots even have one right now at the edge or after Matt Judon was traded away. But at right tackle, you guys know Trent Brown. He's going to start. They also drafted Amarius Mims in the first round. He hurt his pec after the first preseason game. He's been practicing. I don't expect him to be active week 1. It's probably like these are two guys, Brown and Mims, that would probably play about 50% of their team snaps over the last few years, right? Whether that's in college or with the Patriots. And let's merge them together. Let's Voltron this thing into one good, massive right tackle, and it might work out. Let's see.
We said that so many times about the Patriots offensive line last year. Like, why can't we just combine these guys and get 5 good guys out there?
So apparently it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So looking at the Bengals, though, and looking at grades, if you're looking at PFF or anything like that, especially on the interior, they're not a team that was great at play action. Their pass protection got worse under play action. That's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to get more time. You're supposed to get less pressure. And they're a team that leads or near the top usually in true pass sets, which means you are letting your offensive line get exposed. Burrow is dropping back, and he is throwing that ball and scanning the field. Unlike the Texans, who are using a lot of misdirection, a lot of play action, a lot of under center, or the Dolphins, a lot of pre-snap stuff, really hiding that offensive line, a lot of quick passes, a lot of play action again. So the Bengals expose their O-line and have Burrow just chuck that thing. Again, I said, maybe we're going to see more play action. Maybe we're going to see more under center, more screens. That should help slow down the pass rush a little bit. I think that's their hope. Increasing the talent, increasing the floor, but also changing your scheme a little bit to protect Burrow.
Has Burrow looked comfortable in that under center kind of world because he's just been in the gun his entire career?
He never has. He has never looked comfortable. In his rookie year, it was the truncated offseason, the COVID year, and they didn't really get to install anything in the offseason, no preseason. And then they wanted to do it, and it's like, we're like 4 games in. It's like, hey, he does not look comfortable. And then 2022, the year after the Super Bowl run, all their run game was under center wide zone. All their passing game was shotgun. And it's like by week 3, defenses are like, all right, you're in shotgun. You're going to throw the ball. Let's just tee off on them. And they scrapped it after week 4. I think that was the Jets game. Scrapped it, rebuilt their offense completely from shotgun. They ended up being like 92% shotgun the rest of the year. And I think that 8% was just grind the clock down at end of games type situations. And they just went straight shotgun for the last 2 years. And that's worked. But if you're telling me you want to run more of what they did with Jake Browning, which is clearly in their playbook, Browning was successful in that type of offense where you did more misdirection. I think Burrow saw it and was like, okay, it can work. I have to trust it. I have to learn it. This has to be a thing I can do. It's the first time he's not dealing with a calf or an appendectomy or COVID or a knee, right? Because he blew out his knee his rookie year too. Yep. He's actually had to have a chance to practice these things all off season and summer. I'm hoping for the best, but that's something I don't know. I hope so.
Gerard Mayo, when he was talking about quarterbacks, brought up Joe Burrow consistently as someone who's tough as hell, like gets hit, pops back up. You listing off those injuries, I'm like, right, that's why. Because that's just ridiculous that he's still slinging it and gone through all that crap in such a relatively short career.
And it's not someone
we don't want to see it on our side.
Well, he's someone too, like he's so good at what he does, but these injuries that have kind of came up with him, it's not like it's like he's an injury prone guy. Like, again, appendectomy, missing the entire, like most of last preseason. It's like, that's just a freak thing. Obviously a torn ACL, a couple years removed from that. Looks like he's going to be okay there. And then, the wrist stuff as well. So we'll see what happens. I'm super excited to watch Joe Burrow this year. Patriots reporter and fan, we obviously would like to see New England win this weekend, but Joe Burrow, one of the best guys, one of the most like humble dudes out there to just watch and kind of run his game out there. So it's going to be exciting. All right, let's get to some predictions and how we see this game playing out. But before we do, a quick word from our friends over at Game Time. Right now, if you head over to Game Time, you could get into Patriots versus Bengals for as low as just $118 on the Game Time app. It's super easy. They make it simple to use. Game Time Picks, it's a new feature, and it filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through all the tickets. They also have super deals, great deals, amazing deals, and I'm not just saying that because that's what I think they are. That's literally what they're called on the app, and they make it super simple. They curate it and make it easy to find those best prices on great seats. They have their lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection as well at Game Time. So make sure you check it out. And it's not just sporting events either. Taylor's gone to concerts through Game Time. Friend of the program, friend of the CLNS network, Brian Hines, does the same thing. So make sure you head over there and check it out today. Take the guesswork out of buying those concert tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So that's Game Time. Thanks to Game Time for sponsoring this episode. All right, let's get to our predictions. Joe, we'll start with you as the guest here. How do you see this one playing out? Predictions, some people hate them, some people like them. So if you don't want to give a score, don't feel like you have to. But final score if you want to, how you see it playing out, close, do they cover the spread, however you see fit. What do you see happening on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't want to be the bad guy here. So I come in peace on this. But we started this off with talking about how, talking about a team who picked top 5, and, we don't expect the Patriots to be knocking on the door of the Super Bowl this year. And maybe it's next year, right? Maybe the next year you turn around real quick with a quarterback, and we've seen it. I'm telling you, we've personally seen it. It can happen, but it doesn't mean you're good right away. And especially that rookie year where he's not even playing yet, and where that's the hope and the fun will be when Drake May gets out there, right? When he is eventually playing, at least in a loss, you guys will have a good time reviewing that film and seeing how he develops. I've seen lines up to 12 on this game. It's moved a little bit. I think it was 9.5 last time I saw, but that was with the unknown of Jamar Chase.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting closer to the 12 again by the time Sunday comes around, especially if there's an extension with Chase. I'm thinking like 27-14, 27-13. I didn't have an official one ready, but I'm thinking a 2-score game, and I don't want to apologize for it because I think the Bengals should win like that. If they're going where we think they are, if the offense is as good as we think it is, if the defense can play as well as they did against their own offense this preseason and in camp, this should be a good team, and I'm hoping to see it in week 1.
Taylor, what do you got?
I'm gonna pick with my heart, or my heart instead of my brain with this one. It's the season opener. New seasons are all about hope. So you know what? I will go with the Patriots upsetting. But here's the big reason.
Wow.
One, the Patriots defense last year, they don't have Barmore, obviously, but you're hoping that Christian Gonzalez's presence at least kind of boost them a little bit more. I also like some of the other additions they made on defense. And that was a squad that kept them in almost every single game last season, despite the quarterbacks doing their best to throw games away and just not capitalize on opportunities. I think Jacoby Brissett, obviously not really a full season starter type, but I do think his familiarity with the system, his intelligence, his decision-making, his accuracy, short to intermediate, will be enough to capitalize on some of the opportunities that they'll get if they run the ball well. And that's another big thing. If the offense can run the ball, that's when I think this becomes a close game, because you control the pace of the game. Joe Burrow and the big three are cold over there on the sidelines, and you're making life a little bit harder on that explosive offense. So I think the Patriots upset, but I think it's going to come down to the last possession. Defense gets the Patriots the ball back, and they say, hey, this is a new season. How about we put a game-winning drive together for the first time in, what's it been, 4, 5, 6 months or whatever. So, yeah, I got them with the upset, but everything needs to go right for this Patriots offense. That is a lot to ask, and I said I'm picking with my heart and not my brain. My brain thinks that it's going to be more like what Joe's saying, but I do think there's a possibility that the defense is able to put some kind of lid on the Bengals offense, and that the ground game does enough to, keep the Pats offense on track.
I will mend the fence between you two. I will call it a 1-score game, but the Bengals win. I'm going 21-14. Bengals tend to start a little bit slow, especially the last couple of years throughout the season. Patriots, we don't know what they are yet, so they might throw a little surprise at you. You mentioned, Taylor, the run game is going to be key. We talked about it as one of our key matchups. So I think it's tight. I think the Patriots can slow them down a little bit on defense, but ultimately Bengals win 21-14. That's my prediction. Joe, thank you so much for joining us for our inaugural 3-man weave game preview with some key matchups. We really appreciate your time. Before we let you go, quickly tell our fans, tell all of Patriots Nation where they can find you and where they can check out all of your awesome Bengals coverage throughout the season.
Yeah, so Bengals on the Brain presented by First Star Logistics. That's First Star Media page on YouTube. But if you're not interested in watching Bengals stuff, well, you may want to watch a film review after this week. But my Twitter account at Joe Goodberry during the offseason is good for any football fan, I think. Talking draft, talking free agents, doing profiles on multiple players. That's where you'll get the value. So at Joe Goodberry on Twitter is the best spot.
You do great work, buddy.
Thanks again for doing this. This was awesome. Me and Taylor will be back later in the week for more Patriots-Bengals coverage, and we'll obviously have you covered throughout the entire weekend as well as the Pats head to Cincinnati for their Week 1 contest versus Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Check out all of our written work at clnsmedia.com. And until next time, folks, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, y'all.